Welcome back to the Playing with Power podcast, where we talk about everything EDH, CEDH, and Magic the Gathering. Today, I'm your host, DefCat, with...
Higher. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about today.
Yeah. Leading up to this, I feel like there's been so many podcasts on other channels and even little things here where we've touched this subject, but the cooking has started. The cooking, what do we want to call it, really? The deck brewing explosion. So many people are starting to bring so much to the table.
Yeah. Right now, the meta is in this healthy brewing space. We're seeing success of decks that are not historically super popular become dramatically more played because of the success we're seeing them in tournaments, especially when we're looking at metas overseas. The Japanese meta is doing some really awesome stuff. And I'm noticing that our meta is starting to reflect some of the things that they're doing, some of the success they're having with some of these more older CEDH techs. We're seeing the rise of Deadeye Navigator and Palancron again. My gosh. So good. So I'm so excited to talk about some of these things today.
And I'd love to give a timeline here. Everyone thinks, and I think rightfully so, that the bans, the big four that left our formats, what started this, but I don't think those actually affected our choices as much as we think. I think that was the catalyst to make us start thinking about it. And I think the first deck to hit the big time that was doing this was very obviously Wrong Side, right? Everyone started going, oh, a deck that's popular, but what if we play it very different, adverse to expectations, and zeroing in even harder on what the meta is, because that's what it did. It attacked the meta in unique ways. And then we got the obsession over the Japanese model of play. And then now we're getting semi-blue and other things like that. No interaction lists. We're starting to cook harder. And it's basically the same thing as what happened with Mardu Summer in my eyes. This is the next wave of something that the community is really excited about.
Yeah. I want to really shout out some of the people that have been really pioneering some of these things. Like when we think about Wrong Side, and I think about and I reflect back to Mardu Summer when Dahada was just this massive piece, right? Is more about ingenuity of what the deck is trying to do. So reflecting on Dahada, and people who are reading the comments or watching this video, Dahada is a planeswalker that's in Mardu that says it's +2 target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn or something like that. And then but the big thing here, I'm sorry, I know I was supposed to be more specific, I apologize, but it's minus ability. You mill the top 4 cards of your library, and then you make treasures for each card milled. If there is a legendary among those, you may put that card into your hand. This was free Dahada. You get, you cast Dahada, you activate, you get 4 treasures, and it refunds automatically. It goes infinite with an sorcery called Flicker. Right. You just make infinite treasure, or not infinite treasure. You make treasures, but you're able to keep milling yourself, and this fuels your Underworld Breach combos. Really, really good. Really, really good. But it was ingenuity, right? It was right. Typically we wouldn't see this deck being very good, but at the time it was really, really good,
Yeah. Like you're saying, chatting some people out, I right off the top of my head, I associate these people with these decks. So critical EDH with Wrong Side, obviously. That is one instant link. I think another deck that originally came out and wasn't popular till it got cooked on was Marnius with Tim Gold Saber. That was another one. We had you on Big Flips Kinnan. We have Mons on Sisse Breakfast, critical, or CDH TV. We obviously, Cam and Dylan obsessively pushed for people to keep trying out the food chain, and a lot of decks got better from it. We actually went back to a lot of decks that had food chain as a win con. There's a lot of different voices in the community that brought decks back. I remember I was responsible for a small revival of Yizon for a couple months, things like that.
Yeah. And when I think about players specifically that have maybe re-engineered or retooled a commander to great effect, I think of I think of Freedom Waffle on Kinnan, right?
Oh my gosh.
right? No bad cards, Kinnan, just so strong, really good at dealing with the meta, the draw meta. I think of Wounded Satellite also on Kinnan, grind them into dust. Very strong, like taking a deck and pushing it into a mid-range variant that is tournament ready. I think of Comedian. Comedian is the king of taking a deck and winning a tournament with it.
Big flips, baby.
Man, there has been, okay, so me and Comedian go way back, but a few of the decks that he has made that have been just like so good, he took a Zerda and turned it into like this really awesome, it wasn't a commander itself, but it was Thrasios Bruce into Turbo Zerda deck. And I was like, oh my God. Okay.
Oh yeah.
That list was hot. Advantage Thrasios with Zerda. Super hot, right? Took it by storm. Then we had, I think it's Khazur. Khazur is, right? It's the Sultai partner commander. That's a food chain commander. He took that won a game, and like the names for his like decks are so unique. Oh my God!
Oh yeah!
Like he has the. I would name him like the king of having cool names for decks. Like his most recent one for Kinnan is Abomination 2. Just. What?
Yeah, we love Comedian. I know recently after chatting with him after getting 17th at the largest ever CEDH tournament, he's really on Kefka right now. He's really hot on it. He thinks it's going to be up there. I'm really excited to see what he does with the Kefka list. I know for one thing, one of the first things I did when I started running Kefka was running Anger, because you can discard Anger to Kefka as it comes down and immediately give it haste, because Anger says if it's in your graveyard and you control a mountain, all of your creatures have haste.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. And obviously, like I would say is like one of the founding people to make Winota viable in CEDH.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Good old
Winota
snowball stacks.
Yeah, Snowball Stacks, Dawnwaker Thrasios, the Okima list. He had, that's right. He was on Tivit for a minute. Like, he just is one of those people that continues to push and push and push the limit. And like, also like take a look at the decks that he's playing and be like, all right, are these cards still good? And can I put better cards in place? So yeah, but regardless, Brewers have been having a field day most recently, for sure.
And that's the thing. Everyone we just listed and more that you're going to be looking at, it's very rare that you're going to find someone out here in the community that continuously hits in the top 4, continuously top cuts, that doesn't brew, because they are going to be seen at every table they're at. Everyone's going to know who they are, and they're going to have to brew to get over the fact that they're zeroed in on. Their X factor has to be a creative deck building practice more than just either creative politics or creative ways to play the deck already. It's going to have to come from brewing, and that is what makes this format our favorite, is that people come to brew. No other format are you going to get people consistently bringing a different deck to every tournament when there's been no bans. There's almost no other format that can say that.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some decks, man.
Yeah.
Let's get into this.
Let's announce this. This podcast now is going to go into wanting to show you how to brew. We just talked about all the cool things about brewing and people who are doing it, but you at home probably have been playing for maybe at least a year into CEDH now. Maybe you started during the pandemic or have started to get into it as the tournament scene has blossomed and exploded and is, everywhere on social media and YouTube now. But how do you do it? How are you going to take your decks and brew instead of just accidentally make something off meta that, quite frankly sucks?
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. We'll start. So the first list that we'll look at is going to be a list that I've been talking nonstop about, yapping, if it were, yapping nonstop. And this is going to be Kinnan. It's going to be Kinnan Big Flips. And the reason why I want to talk about this list is because it's doing a unique thing in regards to what Kinnan wants to do. So right now, if you were to look at a tournament report and look at maybe the the top 10 decks that have won a tournament on Kinnan recently, they're going to be decks that are on a lot of interaction, a lot of draw power, and they're not necessarily looking to activate Kinnan. They're looking to use Kinnan's mana doubling ability for sure, to try and find advantage, to try and find a win or a path to winning. Big Flips, on the other hand, is really trusting the deck to try and activate Kinnan and find something really, really good that either stops your opponents from winning or wins you the game. So
you're running 5 instants.
Yeah, and none of them are counter spells.
You don't even have Green Sun Zenith in this deck.
It's in the deck. It's Green Sun's Twilight. Green Sun's Twilight.
That's not Green Sun Zenith though. Holy cow. This right here is at least 30, 40 cards off the actual like popular Kinnan list on the database. It has to be.
Yeah.
And what was that? It won an entire league circuit?
Yeah. So, okay. First of all, I want a correction. It's Green Sun's Twilight's not supposed to be in this list. Green Sun Zenith definitely supposed to be. Okay. Yeah. You're good. Thank you. I fixed it now. No. So Critical EDH has a league that I took first in the pre-top cut. And this was on Big Flips. Yeah. So the list has no instance that say counter target spell. There are creatures in this deck that do counter things.
I do see that.
But there is no instant interaction that says counter target spell. And the reason for this is I learned pretty quickly, and in leagues it's different because in leagues you can play as many games as you want. So, but that people were just sending it. There was a turbo meta, and people were just not really being responsible with their interaction and didn't have ways to deal with a lot of creatures, especially like big creatures. They had a lot of ways to deal with I would see Culling Ritual. Culling Ritual continuously like destroy me, or Toxic Deluge again continues to destroy me. But a lot of people were also on creatures with low CMCs and low power toughness. That it didn't feel that good to run Toxic Deluge because they didn't want all their creatures to die. This deck kind of preys on that. It really doesn't care. And I also, if you kill Kinnan, that's fine. That's fine. You play Grafdigger's Cage, also fine. You play a Curse Totem, also fine.
So let me give an outside perspective for a moment. You're running 22 artifacts and a total of 38 creatures. That means a solid, literal 60% of the deck is pure gas. It's just things to get things out faster and things to win you the game, like just straight out. And then the only slots given over to your sorceries, instants, and enchantments were things to just do that faster or more accurately by tutoring. There is not a single bit of this deck, almost at all, that plays reactively. This is a purely proactive game plan.
Exactly. And all I want to do is spin Kinnan. That's all I want to do. I want to find ways to spin Kinnan. And so there's cards that are in the deck that don't just say spin Kinnan, like Mystic Remora, Rhystic Study, right?
Correct.
But in my mind, I think having cards in hand is fine because there's a lot of creatures in this deck that say put a creature from your hand to the battlefield, put multiple creatures from your hand to the battlefield, and ways to find those types of effects. So I've been in situations where I'll have a Consecrated Sphinx and I'll have a ton of cards in hand, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can only put one creature on the battlefield with Kinnan. What do I do? How do I get all these creatures that are in my hand onto the battlefield now? How do I make it impactful? I'm in a worldly tutor for Galta. Galta Stampede Tyrant says when it enters the battlefield, put any number of creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield. And in my deck, I have so many creatures that say, target player loses the game when this creature enters the battlefield. Void Winner says no more even spells. It literally is a Drannith Magistrate for Rogside decks, right? There's
So
no more Rog for you, no more Thrasios for any of these
in
Rog Thrasios players.
I'm going to make a comparison here that I honestly really want your like very visceral, gut honest feedback. Why does this remind me of Winota?
Yeah, because it is. Yeah, Simic Winota. Definitely Simic Winota. Yeah. When this deck, I started working on Big Flips a long time ago. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Me and another member playing with Power named Shawnee, Jamaican dude. We thought about playing Kinnan, and the idea was, why run counterspells? Just run stacks pieces. Just run things that make it so your opponents can't play the game, and that's all you're doing.
Let's talk about a few of those. You've got Trinosphere, you've got Void Winnower, Wandering Archaic, which Wandering Archaic we haven't talked about yet. It says whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery, they may pay 2. If they don't, you make a copy, meaning you can copy any counterspell. You're running Phyrexian Revoker. When it enters, you name a non-land card, and then activated abilities can't be activated. You're running Jin-Gitaxias Progress Tyrant. You counter the first spell of each opponent as long as it's an artifact, instant, or sorcery. Sheesh.
Yeah. Kozilek the Great Distortion. Discard a card with converted mana cost X. Counter target spell with that converted mana cost. Just a casual disrupting show.
Yeah, just casual. Yeah, just real casual. Yeah.
So we run these cards, but then in addition, we're on so many win cons. It's so layered, the deck. An example, we're on Devoted Druid. Okay, Devoted Druid has a lot of win cons. Machine Gods Devoted Druid says put a -1/-1 counter on Devoted Druid, untap Devoted Druid, and it taps for green. And on top of that, we have Machine God's Effigy. Machine God's Effigy says you may have it come in as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it's an artifact and it has tap to add a blue. The reason why that's good is that if you make Machine God's Effigy a copy of Devoted Druid, you can make infinite blue and infinite green because it's not a creature, it's an artifact.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So that's, yeah. So we have Machine God's Effigy. Okay, well, can Machine God's Effigy win with anything else? It sure can.
Oh, yeah.
Machine God's Effigy wins with Astral Dragon. You have an Astral Dragon. When Astral Dragon enters the battlefield, create 2 token copies that are target non-creature permanent, except for their 3/3 dragons in addition to their other types, and have flying. So what happens is that if you have an Astral Dragon on the battlefield, you make a copy of you take a Machine God's Effigy and copy the Astral Dragon. That Machine God's Effigy will not be a creature. It will be an Astral Dragon that's just an artifact. So you can make a copy of Machine God's Effigy with the Astral Dragon enter the battlefield effect. Then you have 2 Machine God's Effigies, and now those are Astral Dragons. And so now from there, you can make infinite any creature that's on the battlefield, any non-creature on the battlefield, right? I've had infinite Lurking Predators. Yeah.
Oh, geez. Lurking Predator says whenever an opponent casts a spell, you reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, when you reveal it, you put it onto the battlefield. That means someone casts any spell and you infinitely put every single creature from your deck onto the battlefield. And I would just like to note that means in your deck currently, due to how many creatures you run, you are going to have enough blue devotion through Thassa's Oracle for that to ETB and win.
Yeah.
And so, looking at this, you were someone who wanted to brew this. You took the time on it. You took out what was interaction, what was counter spells, and you put in disruptive cards instead. So you became a proactive disruptor rather than a reactive disruptor. And then on top of that, that change that you made also heightened your ability to win because so many of these disruptive cards still fed things like Gaia's Cradle, like Growing Rights, anything that you needed. They all became a portion of your mana base due to cards like Enduring Vitality, which says creatures you control have add 1 mana of any color. All these disruption pieces feed into winning faster while still accounting for your loss of counter spells.
Speaking of lines, Enduring Vitality is a line in this deck. So
Yep.
in other decks, you might have Enduring Vitality just for the value, but in this deck, Enduring Vitality is fantastic because if you happen to have a Devoted Druid and an Enduring Vitality, there's a clone in this deck named Gigantoplasm. Gigantoplasm says it enters a copy as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, and it gains pay X. This creature has base power and toughness XX. So you have the Gigantoplasm come in as a copy of the Enduring Vitality. Then you can sack the Gigantoplasm to its own ability and have it come back as a Devoted Druid. It will be an enchantment, not a creature. You make infinite green. Yeah. It's like, it's just layered. And I think that's what you want to do. You want to have, we talked about combos, how many combos you should have in a deck in our previous podcast. And I think this is one of those things where in this deck, I think I'm running like anywhere between 12 and 15 combos that all are synergetic with each other. And that's, I think, where the big success of this deck has come from is I'm always able to go for it. You might have a counterspell. You might have 2, 3 counterspells. I still have another way to win. And I think that's where the deck really shines.
Because this deck would need redundancy without counterspells to protect its own.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I honestly believe there is a world in which one day you might take Ristic out of this deck due to the fact that you're literally running only 5 instants. But there's too much of an advantage gained from passing with it, getting back to your turn, and being able to vomit more mana. There's too much of an advantage to ever say that. But I wonder if there is a meta, but I highly doubt that'll ever happen. But this is as close to a deck as I would ever say that in.
Yeah. No, Ristic, we did cut Ristic. I cut out all the draw engines just to see how it would feel. And what ended up happening is I would go into a turn, like a turn one, typical turn one in this deck is like land, mana rock into a mana producing creature, and then pass land, Kinnan, and I now have mana to cast maybe a Phyrexian Metamorph or something like that. But what would always happen is that, okay, I pass, an opponent goes, okay, calling ritual, and then I'm out of the game. Ristic really gets around that, right?
Yes.
I'm like, okay, I just need to draw cards again. I need to draw cards. People need to play spells, and hopefully I can draw my way back into the game. And if I have a turn 2 Ristic or turn 2 Kinnan, I'm going to turn 2 Kinnan. I don't need a Ristic because I'm not trying to draw my way into a win. I'm just trying to, that's my backup plan.
Yeah. Way too valuable of a backup plan. Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Yeah, fun deck. Super fun
Very
deck.
fun deck.
I hear.
Yeah. All decks will be in the description, and we're going to go on to our next one, Combat Queen Najeela. I'm going to go into this deck. This is a deck that you guys have actually seen on the channel when I was piloting it against Matt Pearson and Kyle on the channel recently, and I pulled out a combat win pressuring life totals. And looking at this list so far, a lot of people will notice the 2 things that are left out of a Wooburg deck. There is no Breach, and there is no Thassa's. And I would like to say, this deck has now been Praetor's Grasp on 4 different occasions for someone looking for my Breach or Thassa's, and they did not find it. And so that felt amazing as just a base level. But the idea of a Najeela list that is fully dedicated to combat, just like this Kinnan list that you've been cooking on, mine is based around the idea that I want to win by casting a creature. I want them to have a hard counter spell in their hand in order to stop it, which most decks currently are only running 3 to 4 hard counters in total. That is Mind Break Trap, which is technically exile, but we'd like to count it, Force of Will, Pact of Negation, and then the 4th one that some people see often is Delay. That has also been made a pretty large comeback. But those typically are the only spells that can stop me from simply casting my commander and then casting something like Grim Hireling that says whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat to a player, create 2 treasure tokens. And then another great creature win is Derevi Imperial Tactician. It says whenever Derevi enters the battlefield or a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may tap and untap a target permanent, meaning you can unlimitedly untap and tap your command tower to make Wooburg and infinitely activate Najeela. Najeela's activation allows me to take infinite combat steps and make an infinite amount of warriors and win the game. So the list is fully dedicated to that, and then all the spots left open from not running combos, not trying to run any breach combos, not trying to run any Thassa's combos, anything else in this that you'd normally see in a WUBRG list. I'm running extra turn spells. In fact, I'm running 7. I am running the 3 red
Yeah.
ones, Last Chance, Warrior's Oath, and Final Fortune for 2 red, take an extra turn. And then I'm running Time Warp. I am also running Capture of Xingzhou. And then we have one in the zeitgeist that's been floating around recently with Vivi. And this one's my favorite one. And a lot of people ignore this card. Savor the Moment. It says
Yeah.
take an extra turn after this one, but you skip your untap step. And what is amazing for me often is I can cast this with whatever mana I had from my Grim Hireling, make enough mana via attacking to cast it, and go into my next turn being able to attack in with whatever creatures I leave behind. I'll not attack with 3 of my warriors. Get that extra turn and be able to go infinite, where I wouldn't be able to normally due to a mana constraint. Because so often, if you guys, anyone else here plays Najeela, you know you'll be at 4 mana, and you're like, if I had that 1 extra mana, I could win the game here. And so it's about maximizing our ability to take extra combat steps before having to pass. That's the entire idea of the deck.
This is so cool, dude. This is so cool. I love that you're on this like hyper focused Najeela is going to win me the game. I'm going to cast her and I'm going to protect her. You have a lot of interaction, a lot of free interaction.
Insane.
And then you're like off to the races. Oh, you have so much card draw in this deck too. Jeez.
Yes. I also maximize card draw. A lot of our creatures, and one of my favorites in the deck, and this is actually a new Final Fantasy card many haven't been playing or probably even know of. It's Ultimecia Temporal Threat. 4 colorless blue. When Ultimecia enters, tap all creatures your opponents control. So now I'm unfettered with my Najeela going into attack. And then it says, whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card.
Yeah. That's really cool. I like that it does 2 things really well. It taps all creatures, which is fantastic for you. And then it draws you a lot of cards. So when you're brewing decks like this and you're on 14 sorceries, which is a lot of sorceries.
Yeah.
It looks like you pulled those slots out of your artifacts. How's it felt ramping you in this deck?
Absolutely. A big portion of what makes this deck different than most WUBRG lists in general, I am not running a single talisman. I'm not running anything to help me make more pips or make extra things that normally you would really want to prioritize in order to use your spells on opponents' turns, because those artifacts allow you to have more pips via dropping a Mana Vault turn 1 and then dropping a Signet. We actually upped the land count from 26 to 29 because we want to hit lands every turn. And then we pulled from artifacts to give more interaction, because most of the time we actually don't need an obsessive amount of mana in this deck. Simply, we want to make sure Najeela comes out turn 2. Now we have around 9 ways of doing that in this deck, between things like Simian Spirit Guide, Tinderwall, Ragavan, Ignoble Hierarch, Delighted Halfling, Deathrite Shaman, Birds of Paradise, Elvish Spirit Guide, and then our artifacts afterwards. But even things like Rite of Flame. And because I have something to where majority-wise I should always see one of these cards in my opening hand, the gameplay looks like turn 2 Najeela, turn 3, all we do that turn is swing Najeela on turn 3. That's the only thing we want to or have to do, and the rest of our mana base just gets to be held up for interaction. And instead of a Signet being in my hand, I have Red Elemental Blast, which most people only run Pyro or Red Elemental, not both. So I have both in my list. Most people don't run both Swords to Plowshares and Path to Exile. We want to run both, and so the idea being, we're going to save these slots from our artifacts, save these slots from these combos, and run either an extra turn that wins us the game or sit back behind our mana, because all we care about is swinging with Najeela. That's the only thing we care about.
Yeah. I love that. There is a card I wanted to get your opinion on. I see intuition in here. What is the intuition pile in this in Najeela, in this version of Najeela?
Yes. So this version of Najeela, Intuition originally served, as well as Gifts Ungiven when it was in the deck, was all about originally running the Breach combo. And when we were cooking on this and taking cards out, we realized oftentimes the one thing we needed was an extra turn. And so Intuition is just another way to throw one of our billion extra turn spells into our hand, and or we can put one of the three different creatures that can win us the game immediately.
Yeah.
Because we're so obsessively redundant on all the effects in this deck, Intuition just says, go find three copies that say win the game. Or on top of this, some of our win cons are able to be retrieved with Savines still. And a majority of the time, that's me grabbing Grand Abolisher, Voice of Victory, and Cutzel.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually really like that. And you said it in the beginning when we were talking about how you were brewing this deck, the idea that you want it to be really hard to interact with. A lot of your combos are creature oriented. So someone might ask, why are you on Druid's Repository? Because that is a win con with Najeela. But it's an enchantment, right?
Exactly.
These are enchantments. These are not going to win him the game because we're talking about a way to make it as hard as possible to deal with your points of interaction. Because you only have, a deck might only have 4 pieces of interaction that deal with creatures. And if you're in a pod with Blue Farm and then Rakdos and then Mardu, you're like really only worried about one deck, right?
Yeah.
And Najeela doesn't get hit by Pyro or Red. And then you have these other parts like Cutzel does not care. Like, you pyroblast my Cutzel, sure, doesn't work.
Yeah.
I love that. I think this is a really good way to look at it. Now, the question is, how has it been performing lately?
Lately, how it's been performing, I'm going to compare this back to 2 different time periods. I'm going to compare this to pre-Big Ban, so pre-losing Dockside, and then we're going to say pre the loss of Stacks. So back when Stacks was big, back when Winota was big, we often got hit with Rending Volley and other spells that said target white or red creature, take 4 damage. And other spells that were against Winota would hit Najeela. Then when Stacks went away and we were more into the turbo meta, Najeela kind of fought through it as a Wooburg soup of combos. And then Najeela was just the backup game plan. And then after the banning of the big 4, the meta read that made me want to build this, and I'll explain how it, kind of delves into its current win percentage, is that going into a game, people have expectations, and their expectation of this deck is that it's still the Wooburg soup. It's got the combos in it, and the Najeela is the backup plan, that no one's paying attention in the Najeela. They think I'm just swinging in. Maybe I'm making warriors for Gaia's Cradle to do a little bit more work, or for Enduring Vitality to come down to make me more mana. You name it. There's a lot of different reasons I'd want warriors, but they don't really acknowledge that as my main win con. And when they see me attack, pass with full open mana, and do nothing with Najeela, they think, oh, he didn't hit anything. He must have missed his Ristic or missed the draw engine. And they don't realize I'm just packing straight counter spells and removal in my hand, and I just want to keep the Najeela around. And often I get completely ignored because my board presence is 3 lands, maybe a Birds of Paradise, and then a Najeela on the board. It takes 4 turns uninterrupted without even a combo piece to win from there. And so if we hit turn 6, I'm already swinging for lethal just because I cast my commander on turn 2.
Yeah, that's a lot of value.
To answer your question, how has it been performing lately? I have noticed a turning point in the last 2 months with the deck. It's gotten a little worse, where people are running a lot more interaction for onboard. That has increased. And as a result, I'm finding myself in much more difficult fights late game to keep it around. In our last episode of Playing with Power, when I went all in for a Ranger Captain before casting a win attempt with this. This was me trying to put Thassa's back in the deck. I ended up in I think it was a 17 spell stack war over resolving a Ranger Captain. And ultimately I lost by a single counter spell. And it went to show, if instead of me having Ranger Captain and then Thassa's Demonic like I did, I would have won if it was just Ranger Captain into Grand Abolisher, if it was just playing 2 creatures. And so it put me right back into this list lately.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think you always have to examine, how is this list performing? How are we feeling? Is the meta speeding up? Is the meta slowing down? Going to turn 6 and this wanting to be a control list means that your turn 1 looks like land Dork Pass, turn 2 land Najeela Pass, turn 3 land. Try to get a Risic on board. Try to get any one of these draw engines on board and just go from there for sure.
Mm-hmm. And turn 1 Najeela is not hard, thankfully, in the list. So there still are fast starts to the list. I mean, that probably happens 1 in 10 games, if I'm being honest with the average. Turn 2 is quite literally every game. I'm always mulliganing for it. But in general, right now, I actually just keep getting further and further injunked into this list rather than trying to put anything back in. It never works out. And I've been having much more success with this one.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Any final thoughts on Najeela?
Yeah, I think Najeela genuinely will never be a deck that will see leave the at least B tier. I just think due to the fact it wins unfettered by itself, I think a good pilot will always be able to bring Najeela to a top 4. I don't think there's ever going to be a day where Najeela isn't in the running.
Yeah, I mean it's a 5 mana good commander, right? Like there's I think you're right there. I totally think you're right. Okay, well we've dipped our toes into from 2 color, we went up to 5 color. Let's bring it back down to 3.
Yeah,
let's go 3 color. Let's talk about the deck. We mentioned it before. It is Wrong Side. Now, Wrong Side can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. To me, Wrong Side was, how can I play Grixis in a way that I will enjoy? I like playing stuff for free. I like getting free spells. I'm not the most aggressive control player, but I do like doing funky wonky things. And my approach with Wrong Side was, I wanted to have as many cards that say you can cast spells at instant speed as possible. And I think in this list, we're on 6 versions of that. We're on High Fate Trickster, Liberator, Urza's Battlethopter. We are on Valley Flood Caller. We are on Leyline of Anticipation. We're on E-Zone, right? Like these are cards that all say, hey, guess what? You can cast spells at instant speed, big guy. And I love that for me. I love that being able to, I'm also on Born Upon a Win.
yes.
And so these are cards that are all trying to do that. Why are we trying to do that? Why are we trying to play spells instant speed? Because we're trying to win in end steps. We are on Necromancy, or not we're on Necropotence, Necrologia. Those are,
please read it. Please read Necrologia.
Necrologia is a hot card. Okay. All right. Necrologia reads, and I quote, you can only play during your end step, and as an additional cost to play Necrologia, pay any amount of life. Draw cards equal to the life paid this way. Yeah. So it's like Necropotence, except for you're drawing the cards. And the downside is that you have to pay life as an additional casting cost. That's okay. So like, here's the play pattern. You cast Roger, you play a land, you Culling the Weak into Dark Writ, you have a floating black. And then from there, floating 1, 2, 3, floating black. From there, you're doing all this in end step. You cast Necrologia, you pay 35 life, go down to 5 life, get all these cards, and then you exile you have a black floating, you're able to exile a Simian Spirit Guide, maybe Ritual into more mana, flash in a Urza's Battlethopter, and then from there you can just start putting rocks into play for free and try and find a win. It's very consistent at doing that one thing. In addition, if you don't have to sacrifice Roger to cast Necrologia, a play that I've really enjoyed seeing is cast Necrologia, pay 35 life, have someone try to counter it. In response, you cast one of the 4 different copy spells in my deck, like Fork or Reverberate, or there is 2 more, Increasing Vengeance and the last one is for free, and
Yep.
it is called Flare of Duplication. So these are 4 different copy spells that allow you to then copy your Necrologia. You draw 35 cards, counter the spell that was countering your card, and then you draw another 35 from the original. It
Yep.
is a mess. There's so much going on there.
Yeah.
So that is like the idea. We're playing a lot of wonky cards that are wonky, not going to lie, but also are fast, explosive, and people don't necessarily see it coming because of how easy it is for you to cast spells at instant speed.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Most notable
I think that's
inclusions here. Go ahead.
the biggest variation between your wrong side list and most that's currently being floating around the internet. I think your wrong side list is just so incredibly versatile at doing things at instant speed. And in my opinion, the 2 most impactful cards in your entire list versus others is Liberator, Urza's Battlethopter, giving all of your colorless spells flash. And the second one, honestly, I think people don't use Flare of Duplication like you do, like you were saying. That is one of the most fancy, flashy plays I've ever seen someone do, which was casting a very well-timed Jessica's Will, instantly copying the dual modal Jessica's Will, meaning you get both the adding the red and exiling the top 3 cards of your library by sacking your Rog Rack with Flare Duplication, keeping both modes.
Yeah. Listen. Tell you a story. Flare is fantastic, by the way. I love Flare a lot. Jessica's Will in this deck is a problem. Jessica's Will in this deck says, I cast Jessica's Will. If I can flare the Jessica's Will and I see the top 3 cards and I make a bunch of red mana, if there's another copy spell in those top 3 cards, fork. Solid.
Yeah.
And I've had games where I just happen to have a lot of cards in hand because of a draw engine or whatever.
Yeah.
And someone puts a Jessica's Will on the stack, or I put a Jessica's Will on the stack, and it leads me to the situation where I have maybe a blue floating and I see a Born Upon a Wind. I'm able to cast the Born Upon a Wind and then cast all these copy spells, let them all resolve, and then at instant speed cast a Yawgmoth's Will to be able to then recast all these copy spells for the original Jessica's Will that's still on the stack.
Yeah.
It's gross. It's so gross.
So talking about
yeah.
what makes you a good brewer and why this brew works comparatively is let's look at mana cost for a second. You got a 5 mana Misdirection, a 5 mana Necrologia, tons of new 2-pip cards like Fork and Reverberate in the list. So much mana. You're running every talisman possible. Any mana rock you could find is in this list effectively that's still somewhat mana positive, or if it's not, it's getting you a pip. And you can do that due to the fact you're not on Nas, you're on Necrologia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a big consideration. Nas is Ad Nauseam is a fantastic card. It is so good, especially in the Turbo Rockside lists. I'm so scared of an early Ad Nas. But in this list, because we're not on Ad Nauseam, we can have a much higher CMC. In fact, there's nothing that cares about CMCs in this deck that really, really matter. And in addition, we get to do some of the really wonky things that I love doing wonky things. We get to get down on some of these funky things like a Jessica's Will into flares. But like also, like I said earlier, I like doing free things. You get to play cards like Arkham Daxon, which says tap it, target artifact creature controllers, sacrifices it. Then that player may search his or her library for a non-creature artifact card, put it into play, then shuffle his or her library. This is good in this deck because Silas Wren is an artifact. It's an artifact creature. So so you go for Arkham Daxon. And what's cool, similar to your list, I do have extra turn spells in this list. So I can go Arkham Daxon, cast Final Fortune, and then next turn cast Silas, tap Arkham Daxon, get a Bolas Citadel, try to win the game.
Yeah. Arkham Daxon almost feels like Hermit Druid. It's if you let this, have haste, or if it comes down and you don't respond to it by the next turn, I will go and get Bolas' Citadel.
Yes. I will definitely go get both Citadel. That's exactly the way I want to run a game.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the idea here. It's supposed to be able to pivot pretty well. You're on a lot of, you're on Thoracle, you're on Breach packages. There are some other things that you can do to win the game, to push the game forward for you. There's a Bowmaster line for sure. But the idea is to just try and find a way to get as many cards into your hand as possible, and then at instant speed, do something with those cards.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So much fun. In Magic on Vegas this year, I think I played 21 games, and of the 21 games, I lost 2 games.
Yeah, it was insane how many people had no idea what was going on, and then out of nowhere, you went Liberator versus Battlethopter, and they're what?
What's happening right now?
Just fantastic.
Yeah.
And the brew here, just to again kind of teach you guys what it takes to brew something like this and have it be separate, have it be something that isn't just, cooking up some random stuff, is you are very tactfully moving the deck over from being able to be versatile around the card ad nause and being versatile around the idea that you have to play out wins on your turn, and you maximized the new instant speed flash, versions of this list, while then pivoting into Necrologia. That way you can run a higher density of higher mana cost cards. And then on top of all that, those new higher density cards can be used, such as Reverberate, Fork, and Flare of Duplication, to then maximize cards that were already in the list, like Jeska's Will, to operate on a much higher propensity, to the point where people go, Jeska's naked? You're not doing anything? Okay. And then you flare, and you're like, oh, crap.
That's way more mana. That's 6 cards instead of 3, and you have 12 mana. Okay. All right, guys, we got to deal with something. Yep. Yeah. It's a fun deck. I recommend, out of all the lists that we're playing, that you try all of them at least once. They so far they look great, and we still have a spicy list left. I'm so excited to talk about it.
Yes. So I remember a time when we used to play a commander named Grenzo. Grenzo was used by a turbo, strategy to cast a card called Doomsday. Now, I realize now that some of you have never heard of this card. Doomsday says, search your library and graveyard for 5 cards, exile the rest, and put the chosen cards, those 5, on top of your library in any order. You lose half of your life, rounded up. And I remembered that I loved playing Tale of Two Timnas. That's where you play Timna and Sakashima in the command zone. And I decided originally to build a list where I wanted to run all the good Esper stuff, package Thoracle really well, and then I was like, wait a minute, I could attack in and draw cards with Timna and then Sakashima as a backup Timna in order to draw through my Doomsday pile and win through Thoracle naturally, and not having to cast Tainted Pact, not having to cast a Demonic Consultation. But the problem was the meta shifted, and now it's very easy to block a Timna. There's a lot more creatures, especially on the ground. So that's when I pivoted, and I made the brewer's choice to start running Raffine Scheming Seer. Raffine says he is a flying Ward 1 Sphinx Demon. He's a 1/4, so he is bolt safe. And whenever you attack, target attacking creature connives X, where X is the number of attacking creatures. That means that you draw X cards and discard X cards. And that, my friend, is a flying Ward 1 with 4 toughness way to crack my Doomsday pile and immediately draw into my Thassa's Oracle and play it. And then on top of that, now every single creature that I have is a loot engine. It allows me to draw and discard. And so I get to run all the fun hate bears like Dothy Voidwalker. And then on top of all that, all the value engines, Polywog Prodigy, Lotho, Ledger Shredder, and those also become beaters. And at one point, this deck controlled the game so hard by the fact I had Delany's Streetwise Navigator out, meaning all my creatures that have a power 2 or less trigger twice. My Esper was triggering twice. My Archivist of Ogma was drawing me and gaining me life every time someone fetched twice. I controlled the game so hard that I realized I had drawn through so much of my deck that in my end step with Flash, was able to use Necropotence to draw the rest of my deck and then flash in Thassa's to win the game. Because I grinded the deck that hard. We were on turn 9.
Yeah.
So this
hard.
is the grindiest Esper list I've ever played. And on top of that, when I was building it, I realized Doomsday is just a 1-card go grab Thassa's win, as long as I can crack the pile, which is basically every game.
Yeah, for sure. I love how this list plays. Delny is a hot include. I love Delny, which says creatures you control with power 2 or less can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater. And if an ability of a creature you control with power 2 or less triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. So not only are you with Raffine, are you conniving once? No, that'd be too easy. Yeah. No, we're gonna connive twice. We're gonna get a bonus round on this.
Yeah, and then we're going to make an Esper Sentinel that has like +7/+7 due to conniving constantly, and now you have to pay 8 mana in order for me not to draw with my Esper Sentinel, and that ain't happening.
Nope, not today. There's some really interesting cards here. I would love to get your opinions on these. Dark Petition being number 1.
Yes.
Dark Petition is fantastic. Tell me more about this.
So Dark Petition specifically, I would only run this in decks that constantly loot, where you draw and discard, because Dark Petition says search your library for a card, put that card into your hand, and then shelf your library. It's basically Demonic Tutor on the first line. The second line says Spell Mastery. If there are 2 or more instant or sorcery cards in your graveyard, you also add 3 black to your mana pool. Now, it is Demonic Tutor after the fact, because you get the mana spent past what you would for Demonic Tutor and get that back. And it's specifically 3 black pips. So I can even use this to filter mana a little bit. And the reason I run it is it's extremely easy to get Spell Mastery when I'm constantly drawing and discarding through my commander. And if that one card that I draw, or that one card that I tutor is Doomsday, I've just, tutored Win on a Stick.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
You're on a casual card that I'm like, there's a couple of cards I'm like, what is going on?
Yes,
Diabolic Tutor. Okay,
Diabolic Tutor. This. Search your library for a card, put that card in your hand in the shuffle, but at a twice as bad rate as Demonic Tutor. It is 2 black, 2 generic. But the reason I run it is this deck has an insanely easy propensity to make black mana. It is extremely easy to make black mana in this list. I'm actually running Sacrifice in this list in order to run more black pips as a result. And so we're running Cabal Ritual, Calling the Weak, Dark Ritual, Sacrifice. I've been thinking about running Lake of the Dead, but I don't want to have to be able to tutor a swamp every turn to do it, but it's an idea. The idea being also I'm running every single talisman that these colors can run, so I have a lot of pips. The only thing this deck has to do to win is put Doomsday in your hand. It's the only thing it has to do. And when that is the only thing I need to look for in the entire list, I don't need to find Thassa's plus Demonic Consultation or Chain of Pact. The only thing I need is Doomsday. Then I'm going to run Grim Tutor. I'm going to run Diabolic Tutor, Diabolic Intent. I'm going to run, Dark Petition, Demonic Tutor. I'm even going to run Mastermind's Acquisition, which is just a modal Diabolic Tutor.
Yeah. This is so cool. I love this. Is there when you're playing this list, do you ever feel, because you are on a lot of interaction, do you ever feel like, okay, I need this to go move a little bit quicker, and that these tutors that are a little bit more expensive get in the way of that?
So far, the game was honestly worse without them. Originally, I was running more card draw effects, more creatures, rather than these extra tutors. And what would happen is I would just get more card draw and I would find more interaction, and the game would grind to an Esper halt where someone eventually wipes the board and wins because I couldn't present something fast enough. And this deck is so good at making mana that I realized just more tutors meant more access to wins.
Mm-hmm. There's a card that I've seen get really popular in blue farm decks.
Yeah.
And I think this is a slam dunk in this deck. And the card that I am looking for is, I think it's called Demonic Council.
Correct. Yes. Demonic
right?
Council is not in this list yet. It's not been tested. And this is the list that I actually ran on the channel. So I'm keeping it pure. My current paper list is running Demonic Council. It is the almost same thing as Dark Petition, except it costs the same as Demonic Tutor, where you need spell mastery in order to get any card.
Yeah, I think in this list, I think it makes sense. But
Oh, yeah.
the hard part for me is really trying to figure out like the balance, right?
Mhm.
What am I doing that's going to be really pushing the deck forward? And I really like how considerate the deck is right now. It's considering I'm putting a lot of cards in the graveyard. I'm gonna get the spell mastery, not a problem. I got it.
Yep.
And so I like that. I like that a lot. And you're on delay. You said it before.
Yep.
It's in the deck. You're
Yes.
also on Limdol's Vault. Tell me about Limdol's Vault.
Oh, Limdul's Vault is the funniest thing possible. I have used Limdul's Vault in order to connive a pile. So Limdul's Vault says you get to look at the top 5 cards of your library. If you like it, you can put them back in any order. If not, pay 1 life, set aside that pile, and draw a new pile of 5. And you keep doing this until you find a pile you like, and that pile gets put on top in any order, and the rest go to the bottom of your library in those piles of 5. And what I've done is use this to perfectly stack the top of my deck and go grab a pile that I want in order to connive with Raffine. And often it is just another tutor for Doomsday.
I love it. I love it. Man, it's so cool. And I love that like Raffine sees a lot of love in Brawl. And
Yes.
I love seeing Raffine in CEDH. I mean, this deck looks super sick. The
Yeah.
conniving, it turns out, wins games.
Yeah, it does. And originally most people saw Raffine in its first iterations when it, you know, showed up for a little bit in CDH was Reanimator, because you'd be
Uh-huh.
able to discard and reanimate very easily, and you would just find Razaketh and go for the win from there. But this deck lacks green, and most Razakat's lines want green in order to run the card Life and Death, which turns all of your lands into creatures. So that way you can
Mhm.
sacrifice your lands in order to tutor with Razaketh, which says pay 2 life, sack a creature, put any card from your library into your hand. And due to it not having that, that strategy fell off quickly. And Raffine just couldn't keep up with the meta by doing Reanimator effects. So instead, I replaced all the clunkiness of Reanimator with spell mastery, easy access to tutors, and more card draw engines in the form of creatures, which allow me to connive with Raffine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Great job, man. This is so cool.
Very fun list. And also pick up the Japanese foil promo Delny while you can. It is cheap at the moment. Well, cheap.
Yeah.
Cheaper than most Japanese foil promos. And I don't think most people know it's so widely available on places like eBay right now. They're easy pickups, but definitely suggest picking that up soon because that card is gorgeous. Oh,
Yeah. It looks so, so good. I love
love
this.
it. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Today, we have talked about how to brew. And a big portion of that is making sure you guys know about going into brewing a CDH deck. It's about seeing something within the deck that you feel like can be maximized due to the meta differently. In Kinnan Big Flips, we saw taking out the need for interaction for proactive disruption, which aid the game plan of winning. Within Combat Queen Najeela, we saw the removal of certain combos and more fragile counterspell dependent combos in lieu of putting in more creatures that require a hard counter spell to top. And Nozeless, our awesome brew of Wrong Side from Alex here, we saw someone take what was originally and traditionally one of the fastest decks in the format and make it a flash deck, which is so insanely unique of an angle. And it's been encouraged by the meta lately. A lot of new cards encourage that. And lastly, here with Raffine, we've seen traditionally what was a clunkier deck out of meta return with more consistency and value engines. And every single time, you need to answer that question. What about the deck is not in favor in the meta? How can you replace that with something in favor in the meta? Something that can attack the meta at an angle. So this isn't brewing something for the sake of it being creative, unknown, or your opponent's being unable to guess, because that only works for so long. No, it's about taking something targeted by the meta and replacing it with something untargeted by the meta. And that's where I think the best brews from the best players right now that we're talking about really shine.
Absolutely, 100%. I think that you are spot on with this, man. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And for people who are interested in brewing their own decks, take a shot. You do the thing that you like that makes you the most happy, and who knows, it might be the next winning strategy.
Absolutely. We couldn't do any of this. We couldn't have this podcast, though, if it wasn't for our patrons. You guys rock. Constantly supporting us, seeing all these episodes early, commenting early, chatting with us, getting over on the Discord and talking more about content. And then also, of course, we couldn't be playing this game safely without the lovely protection of a Dragon Shield sleeve and or playmat. So if you guys are looking to protect this expensive Carmord, such as a foil Japanese Delny, put it in a Dragon Shield sleeve.
Facts. Big facts.
Thank you for watching, everyone. This has been DefCat MTG.
Higher.
We look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Peace.